Okay, willkommen zurück. Welcome back. So the next talk will be in English. If translation is needed, please use the headphones. So the next input talk has the title Digital Art for Non-Human Life Forms, and it comes from the studio above and below. It's a London-based art studio and technology collective founded by Daria Jelonek and Perry James Sugden, which are both here. You can come on stage already. The aim of this collective is to grow connections between humans, machines, and environment, and they use digital art and data to do so. The artwork they produce consists of immersive installations, mixed reality experiences, or reactive artworks, and they always use technologies with live data inputs, and they try to give the environment the opportunity to express itself. In their talk, they will reflect on the question, what if art technology involve more than human life forms? Which forms, engagements, mindsets, and futures would emerge? And I'm very curious about your input on this question.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We titled it our talk Digital Art for and with non-human life forms. Let's see.
So yeah, we're both practicing artists, and we work under the studio practice studio above and below. We're going to run through several successful projects that we've worked on in the last 5 years. And they include using mixed reality tools, data sets, and AI, as well as collaborations with science partners, technology partners, the landscape, data sets, other species, minerals, rocks, the list goes on.
Yeah. But maybe going back where Perry and I got to know each other 8 years ago at the Royal College of Art during our master's program, and Perry taught me one thing besides a lot of things, but that was to consider our life forms, even the smallest among us. That included, for example, not killing spiders, even if you're allergic to it. Or, and it's really, this little anecdote not only shows that Perry taught me to consider all the smallest life forms around us, but it also shows that actually behavior can be changed. And going 8 years back, yeah, my behavior has changed, and this should be a small story to show that we collectively can actually change behaviors.
So yeah, we've broken down our talk into 6 different considerations for when working for or with non-human life forms. Each of these considerations we've learned over a number of years of having a series of projects and taking away different experiences from these projects.
And we will introduce you to some of the AI tools which we have been using throughout those projects. But going back, we should first define what is actually non-human. And yeah, human beings, we probably all consider ourselves as human beings, are the species that derives from Homo sapiens. Then we see biological non-humans are species that define the variety of living organisms on our planet. And yeah, to break it down, this can be animals, plants, fungi, microbes, but also we count into natural forces such as the weather, the ocean, waves, and so on. But we also think there's a third category, which are artificial non-human life forms, which are technological by nature. And into this category falls AI, robots, chatbots, virtual systems. And the point is that, yeah, technology is not only becoming our second nature, but we should also see it as a non-human species that we look after, that we consider and are aware of.
So our first consideration for this talk is care, and we probably think this is the foundation for all change and cultural production. This includes care for other species that we've tried to incorporate into our projects that we'll show today, care for concepts and topics, care for people along the whole production chain, the supply chain of producing art and technology, as well as care as a motivation for change. So I think we were both excited by this quote. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
But why should we care for non-human life forms? The book by Timothy Morton called Humankind starts with a sentence. There was a time when man imagined the Earth as the center of the universe, and this is probably still a very common belief system, because obviously we're human, we look through our eyes, and it's connected to our brain. However, humans actually just make up 0.01% of Earth life on our planet, and being in this dilemma and knowing that human has a 100% impact on our planet, we are interested in our artworks how we can acknowledge the other 99%, which we share our planet with, and step outside the 0.01%. And this is why we think through art it's the first stepping stone to create new mindsets, to consider how we can also feed non-human life forms into the training process of different AI systems, and have an all-planet approach.
So yeah, some of these design approaches that we've been testing out in our recent projects involve using life-centered design. So what is life-centered design? This involves the consideration of all people, plants, and living entities within a practice, and the impacts of digital technologies and arts.
To break it down, it's the most design approaches are human-centered. It is probably also by our nature, but knowing this, I think we can step outside that, and maybe further the next step is an all-people approach, so really also consider the people actually in the production chain and thinking about that when designing. The next one is an all non-human design approach, so really considering other species such as animal, fungi, microbes, and what we should work towards is really an all-planet approach, which also includes all the vegetation. We're saying it's not easy. It's like it's a big aim to get there, but I think keeping this in mind, we can all, when we start a project, thinking, is there a way to actually consider all those elements into it? Because why should we care? Nature is our economy. Like the planet is built of nature, and therefore nature is very expensive and highly political, and we should all have an interest in us. Nature health ensures our health, and this is why an all-planet approach throughout the projects could maybe lead to a new mindset.
So yeah, our second consideration from projects is the importance of research. So researching into what is working and why it's working or not working. Researching into how we can change mindsets and how we can imagine new worlds, and researching with and who we're working with. So the video that we just showed here is the result of an 8-month research commission supported by the European Commission. This involved working with soil scientists, games engines, experts, city planners, and ourselves as artists. It also involved researching and working with soil quality data in the landscape, using machine learning, algorithms, and agents, and resulted in an augmented reality sculpture that's permanently in southwest Flanders.
But how we start those projects, even they are highly technical and have a lot of different algorithms, an AI system behind. Even though we're artists working in the digital realm, we always immerse ourselves into the physical world to ground us actually in the physical world. For example, in this project we explored soil quality in a specific area in Belgium, and we talking to experts and city planners. We went to some sites which are currently being regenerated to increase the soil quality in those areas. A simple phenomenon is, for example, to de-sealing, so taking the concrete away and letting air and water actually to those unhealthy surfaces. And how we then go about it when working with those digital tools and AI systems, we are always interested in finding a poetic way where we can combine the algorithms and our concepts and the theme with something that inspires each other. So finding a natural source that inspires the algorithm and the visual system. In this case, we found a system called mycorrhizae, which is a exchange system between roots and fungi underground and healthy soil quality, and this is how it looks like if you under the microscope, but what you don't see is actually the exchange between it, and that inspired the underlying machine learning algorithm for the sculpture that you've seen.
So we researched into what real-time data was available within the area that we were working, and how this could influence our AR sculpture. So this involved speaking to different soil scientists in the area, where we were able to use available sensors that were reading soil temperature, as well as water quality and weather data. And by having access to this data, we used it within our sculpture as parameters for how this sculpture superficially, visually would look, but also behind the scenes, how it would act and trade. So yeah, how we worked with AI here, we used a games engine called Unity and a tool set called ML Agents. It may just look like a bunch of dots moving around the screen, but actually this was a trained environment where these dots had points in a way, and based on the quality of water and soil data, they were more easily able to trade their resources and points. And yeah, behind this was influencing the visual augmented sculpture, so how it moved and acted in the space.
What has worked about this project is actually it took place in a rural area in Belgium, and it really invited the audience, people in the area who usually don't encounter digital art or different advanced technologies that often, but also who pass their landscape every day and just take it for granted and doesn't see the change. But bringing those people together and actually seeing the soil quality through a different lens really helped them to revisit the space, to be open for the regeneration in the area.
Yeah, so our next consideration is the importance of collaboration. So yeah, collaboration with biological non-humans, collaboration with artificial non-humans, as well as the importance of collaboration with expertise and collaborating with the unknown.
this project that you just seen is called meditative computation, and the starting point for it was the question, what if we would redesign our screen technologies, such as billboards or our smartphone, to listen to non-human life forms in the city, so to different animals. In other words, what if we would redesign the phone to include actually animal voices, to include animal needs? Would we care more? Would we listen and react to our environment differently? This project explored bioacoustics, so the sounds of different animals, but also natural sources in the city of Brussels through a variety of AI tools that we will introduce in a bit, and led to this immersive piece, which represents the idea. The starting point for this project was actually engaging with one specific area in Brussels. It's a swamp, which actually was created by accident. So it's a really good example of how biodiversity can actually be increased in cities. During some construction site, a pipe broke, and then they didn't carry out the construction, and the swamp was created, and we found that really inspiring. And for every working a lot with data, but also with AI systems, obviously data is very important, and as a starting point, we looked into different available data sources about this place, about species that we could find there. They're like open source elements or data sets where people can participate with. It's, for example, Observation.be, where people upload images and sounds of those species, and a place that hasn't existed a few years ago now attracts 94 birds, 2 mammals, 4 reptiles, and 28 insects. But this is something we first needed to know in order to see, okay, what's the right model that we can use for this system that we are going to build.
Yep, so to give you an idea of time with this project, it was a 2-month project. So we were juggling quite a lot of different elements to create this work. This included sound design, taking sounds from the surrounding, using machine learning models, visual outcomes, and games engine mechanics. So yeah, we were rapidly prototyping listening and classifying tool to place in the landscape. This involved using affordable and lightweight hardware such as a Raspberry Pi and Coral AI for building an AI product, as well as just a basic microphone. Once we had this hardware, we could deploy it in different places, and through having live recordings, we knew we wanted to use some kind of classifying model to distinguish what those sounds were. So as artists, we explored 2 different tools, including teachable machines, as well as an existing model, YAMNet model. So,
which is, maybe to talk about the model, it's an existing AI model which is trained actually of the existing library on the internet of sounds, which was affordable to use during that time, but it also shows actually how limiting it is, how it doesn't include all species, like all animal sounds. It is very narrow. So this is just like why working with those tools, we are always like interested in actually, not only take them for granted, but see them critically.
Yep. So when we started this project, we started collecting our own data sets of sounds and trying to classify them ourselves and train a model using teachable machines. So as you can see here, this is like the UI for teachable machines, where you can upload your sound recordings. You can classify them, so it could be the sound of a bird, a frog, etc. Teach this to a model, and then deploy that model onto like a lightweight device, such as a mobile phone or Raspberry Pi. But yeah, based on the time of the project and the budget we have as artists, it took too much of our time up, so we ended up going back to using an existing model that we could use. So we used this model, YAMNet model. So it's able to classify like a diverse range of sounds. It wasn't trained on sounds from the environment that we were trying to classify. It was actually trained on sounds from YouTube videos. But yeah, we decided this route for the project. And then I guess, yeah, we used an AI model within this project, but the main brain of our project was using a software touch designer where based on sounds that were classified and heard, we created a point system to curate and change the visual language in the space. So to give you an overview of this, so the more human sounds or machinery sounds heard from our sensor and model, the more our sculpture was grounded in like a square shape versus if animal sounds or other species were heard, the model became more of an organic architecture and form. So yeah, from this project, we started to imagine how these tools could include non-humans in such ways as animal communication in the city through billboards, applications for other animals, more services and automation for other species, as well as other species having being able to use models in terms of being the input and output, not just the trained data set in some way. So yeah, this was the start of a project for us to think about how software, AI, and games engines can be used as an empathy tool.
The next consideration that we want to introduce you to are the materials that we use. While working with physical and digital materials, it is important to think about the longevity of the material, the process, the recycling and upcycling, but also what and is there an added value of using this material. We would like to introduce you to a project that we actually created in this area 2 years ago called Aquatech, which is a 8-minute short film using AI tools to generate new materials, actually before DALL-E and everything existed. But what we were interested in is a term called material ecology, and it is when actually the natural landscape can influence engineering or sites or like product design, for example, through natural sources. But we were interested, is there a way to actually translate this to the digital side? Can the outside world in real time or non-real time influence our materials on everyday devices, for example, that we see of sculptures? It's the idea of like bringing really outside to the digital world. This is a small excerpt of the film. The process of the film was to visit the River Ruhr, which just runs also through Essen from beginning to end, and first of all immerse ourselves into the different physical materials of it, biophysical materials, but creating our own data set with it. So we took tons of images of the water surface, of the greenery, of the stones, in order to train our own AI model to think about or dream about new materials which could emerge in this place one day. And we are also aware this is also actually a timestamp of that moment in time. What we got is the result of those 2D new materials, surfaces, which are based off a popular tool set called Steigan 2 years ago, and generate those hybrid materials. Working a lot in the 3D space, we were interested to take this 2D imagery and deploy it to 3D surfaces through 3D objects. So this is a technical overview of how actually, like the 2D materials, we translated them to the 3D surface, which then,
which resulted in these augmented forms that then we created using 3D rendering software. So within this film, we imagine these objects living on the river and adapting on the river.
The underlying narrative of the film is then inspired obviously from the beginning to the end, that viewers could experience this river through this film, but also the narrative is based off how AI systems are actually built. So in the beginning, it is about creating your own data set. It is about collecting all the data. The second stage of the film is that you organize it and train it to get this new configurations. And the third one is that once everything is trained, it is in the world. It is, it lives with us, and being conscious about that. But this was the underlying narrative, which then led to this film, which we understand is very speculative, but we were interested in, first of all, also give the audience a different view on the Ruhr, but also see how, going back to the idea of digital material ecology, how really biophysical systems can influence digital systems. The next point, second last one, is sensory, and what we mean by that is reflect on human senses and non-human senses and ground the aesthetics through artwork creation in it. This project that you've just seen is called Semi-Journal Spaces. It's a immersive dome piece, and it's an example that really worked well for humans to immerse them actually into a digital landscape. This project took place in South Wales in the UK, and we worked with the different tidal data of it. And it's actually, people visited it from the area, people who are used to the tides, who are used to the sea, and people who spend hours in there actually just immersing themselves into watching different patterns going by. And it's really an example of how we can play with human senses to immerse them into some of the topics. And this is the one approach. The other approach, which we've seen this example earlier, is actually to think more about the senses of non-humans. So what if we explore more senses of different animals, different species, and design spaces for them. And this is the example that we've seen earlier by Alexandra Daisy Ginsberg to create an artwork, a plant artwork actually for pollinators, so for bees, for example, using AI. And this is just generally when we design with digital, like artworks generally, using AI or different tools to really think about the different sensory experiences that we want to create.
So our final consideration, and I think what motivates us at the moment, is how we can be critical with these technologies and AI. So we probably have all come across this quote before by Marshall McLuhan: "Media is an extension of the human senses." But probably a contemporary way of seeing media is an extension of the earth itself. So these systems are literally built on rocks in the form of minerals from the landscape. And as artists, we want to be considerate about these tools that we are using and how much they play a part of the landscape and chains that supply them.
So as a conclusion, thinking back about the spider, we hope that we can inspire through culture, reaching a larger audience to create new mindsets, to create change, and we're aware that this takes time. But I think if we are all motivated and if we reach a large audience to have this as a motivation, we can change our behaviors. But what leads to that is really caring for biological and artificial non-humans too. So to be aware of all the biological systems which are in the production chain, but also about the artificial systems that we use. The AI algorithms reflect critically about them, what we feed them with, maybe create more systems, maybe also include more other human, non-human voices into them. And we believe that art has the power to bring this to new mindsets. I think we all want to, we are mostly inspired when we immerse ourselves into cultural experiences, when we watch a film that inspired us, see an artwork. This is what stays in people's minds and which has the power to really bring this larger message to citizens, institutions, but also politicians, and hopefully leads to changing behavior. But as artists, we are not alone with this. We need institutional power behind that to really follow those ideas, to consider other beings into the supply chain and create new mindsets for action. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Daria and Perry James. I don't know, I would first ask the audience if there are any questions, and if there aren't at once, then I would start along. I don't see any at the moment. I would have a question. For example, you showed different environments in which you work. How do you choose these environments? Which environments are interesting for you?
I think it's really is project dependent. I think sometimes we see open calls where we're allowed to come up with an idea that we completely come up. Sometimes there are open calls, for example, in the beginning, what we showed with the European Commission, where you have a rough theme that you explore. And but I think we are interested in creating site-specific projects. So really, as said, physically immerse ourselves into the area, create our own data sets, for example, and working with experts actually with experts or species from the site to not only think, okay, we're the expert and we know everything, but like actually finding the right people in those environments. And I think it's a leading thread that we're interested to work with different natural environments it's
And the AI tools you use, some of them were obviously already configured, they existed, but do you create your own tools as well?
We wouldn't say we completely create our own tools, but we try to, when we can, create our own data sets within those tools. But yeah, we try and work with a vast variety of tools and not limit ourselves to just using one tool or software in a way. So each project we showed used a different AI model.
But it's also like we first have in mind, okay, what is it that we actually want to create? And as, for example, as earlier I heard, is an AI model really the right thing for it or not? And then make a decision of that. I think we then see what is available, and do we see this project more as a prototype for a bigger idea and working with the available tools, or is the project actually about, for example, criticizing a specific data set? So I think it's really making the decision in the beginning and then seeing what is the right tool to express it.
I mean, if I understood correctly, AI is for you a tool as well to underline or to give a voice to others, non-human life forms. Can you precise why do you think AI is such a good tool for that?
I don't know.
I think there's a possibility that it automates this communication process to like a vast, broad audience. Maybe there's still like people who have access to these tools and technologies that could still be problematic because it's not accessible to everybody, but I think it's a way of adding other species into this network of technology.
But as we said in the beginning, we see it as a non-human entity that surrounds us as well, that we should take seriously, because we engage it more and more. I mean, like through, for example, using ChatGPT, it is like a chatbot that you talk to. I think you personify it in a way, and you should take that person also seriously. And this is why we see it as the third artificial non-human entity that we work with.
There's a question here, Florian.
Okay, so first of all, thanks so much. A lot of inspiration. Thanks. I have one question. You choose a very artistic approach, and when we now talk about the economical or the business field and institutions, cultural institutions, etc., I experience that very often it's just talked about user experience design. So that's I would say the practical field where design comes in and then products are built, etc. What is your experience about the status quo of not only doing user experience and classical service design, but to include the non-species view also in this practical product development in the field outside of the artistic world?
Yeah, I guess a lot of people are not open for it yet, especially if it's like very economically driven. However, I think there's another person called McDonald here. He also K. McDonald. They say that actually, I mean, we're making like so much money with different technologies, and there's actually no harm in including other species in it. It will like still carry on being economically viable. So I think first of all, companies could be open to it. And I think the diagram we showed in the beginning to the all-planet approach, I think is like the first step is stepping away from that completely human-centered, and then considering all humans. Then maybe the next step is about including animals, and like I think one day maybe you get to the very right where you have like this all-planet approach. Where I just think like it's still, I think, very hard for companies to deploy this view, but I think for institutions, I think if they start new projects, maybe they can consider what if we actually think a little bit outside our 0.01% view and consider there's actually 99% of other life, and what would we need to do in this experience and this. I think just as a provocation to think about, is there something that we as an institute or company or similar could do?
Do you think, for example, Apple has a non-human-centered designers in their design teams? Do you know about companies who have...
That's a good question. Maybe. I don't know, but it's...
Could be a cool business model, I think.
Yeah.
There's another question here in the fourth row.
Thanks for your talk. I also... it was very inspiring. You talk a lot about empathy, and maybe you could tell us some more words about this, the connection of technique and empathy.
Yeah, I think when we try and tie this into projects, I guess it's letting go of control in some way within our projects. So allowing other expertise, other species, other things control our project in some way. And I think this allows us to connect with these different entities in new ways, and allows us to be more empathic. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think there's on the one hand the experience that we create, that we want to create empathy for a specific theme. So think about the senses of the audience stepping into it. But then actually we are very open about the tools that we use, and also about errors that occur and so on. And I think actually being open about the underlying architecture of those AI systems and larger networks, I think also brings in empathy of what's actually the entire supply chain of those things. And I think there are those two points of empathy that we should be conscious about.
In your talk, you used the term collaboration, which sounds like as if there is some kind of equal setup, which is in reality not really an equal setup, because you decide that you want to collaborate with AI or with the other non-human life forms. How do you deal with this theoretical challenge, I would call it, that it's in the end always the human who just like defines what the non-human does or what he might create?
That is definitely a challenge, because obviously, like, we're still creating the works like through our minds, through like the lens of a human, and our fingers are there deciding which program or machine learning algorithm you go for. But I think, sorry, what was your question?
It's more like a theoretical challenge, I think, just like I think, which is always an issue as well for this discipline called human-animal studies, which is like that in the end, if you deal with the other, you still look, you decide, you look through the eye of the human, and you just like interpretate, and that's quite an unequal relation.
I think it's a difficult thing to get away from. That's like in the lens of any field, I guess, as like a scientist or working with technology, and especially in the arts as well.
But maybe giving it more space, like, and also from the beginning actually thinking how can we really purely create an artwork for non-humans, such as the example with the pollinators, where the artwork is actually outdoors. It is inviting this, I think, where you have the power to also let it go and actually see what happens. I think there is maybe where you take yourself a little bit away and can give it space.
Okay. Given the time, I think we have to proceed to the break. If there aren't any other questions from the audience, I would say thank you very much for this inspiration and for your talk.